And yeah, everything just looking lit, radiantly lit by the sun. What a way to start the new year. And last night, yeah, it felt so precious actually, just, when that 12 o'clock, the bells rang and we did the dedication ceremony, dedicating ourselves, dedicating this year, to our life and practice in the Dharma. What better way? I couldn't think of a better way to start the new year. Very beautiful evening, orchestrated by Samantha Badri, full of richness and symbolism. Just really lovely to share it with those of you who managed to stay up. So this morning, as you can see, it's me here, Ratnavandana. I'm going to firstly just talk about, we're going to have an Avalokiteshvara puja this evening. And well, for one thing, I realized that we did suggest that you had a second bowl by your shrine, by your ritual space, for rejoicings. And yes, in the puja tonight, there could be an opportunity to offer any rejoicings that particularly came out of the gratitude day yesterday. But also, I've been thinking quite a bit about, well, just again, the sort of significance of the year that's just passed. It does feel like it has been a really significant year. The challenges that we've all been faced with, and the fact that we have had to dig so much deeper. It just feels as though it's brought us all together in very, very particular ways through the suffering and the tragedy of it, but also through the gifts that it's brought, which have been many and so beautiful. I think it's given so many people an opportunity to rethink their lives. Certainly, I think it's given us an opportunity to rethink our lives, but I think that's been, across the board, that people have had a chance to kind of reevaluate, to recognize, what really is of value more. And it feels like it's been very significant in lots of ways, and that will have an impact going forward. And I was thinking that perhaps having an Avalokiteshvara puja, imagining ourselves as a hand of Avalokiteshvara, the thousand-armed Avalokiteshvara, going out into the world, and what do we want to take to the world in 2021 as a result of our experience of 2020? What's it taught us? What's it brought to us? What's it shown us? That's given us a sense of what we really want to take to the world in 2021. So I was thinking that we could offer our hand of Avalokiteshvara in the puja tonight with whatever it is you feel you want to offer the world. It might be one thing, it might be several things, whatever comes to you. And perhaps this afternoon in our groups, we could share whatever it is that we want to offer. It would be a lovely way to get a collective sense of what we are taking back out into the world at the end of this retreat. So yeah, I really encourage you to think about it, and you might want to draw a hand, cut out a piece of paper in the shape of your hand and write things on it, or paint it, decorate it in different ways if you feel so inclined, to offer in the puja tonight and to share particularly in the groups this afternoon. Okay, so I think we'll just sit for a couple of minutes with that, and then Samantha Badri has a poem by Kathleen Rain that she wants to share with us this morning. And then we'll just sit for a little bit after that, letting things settle. And then I'm going to talk about Mudita.
So this poem is entitled Winter Solstice, but I think that the verses are also very appropriate to the bardo that follows that solstice, and therefore to the point that we have really just experienced. Everywhere, the first bird of the year has sung a valentine to the last winter star. In cold, shrill voice, the first loves of spring, leafless as the blooming of jasmine trees. The stars' intervals lead in the first winds, open the first buds, hold the first pauses that wait for hope, expectant of music. Foreknowing leaves unfold, faithful to heart's beat. The green winter stars of thistle and scabious open in slow cadence of the tall, sweet flower. The first light of dawn on the heart's desolate stone will reveal a mountain in a blue sky shining. Each star is answering another, and the sun, that bridegroom kind once again, northward to us returning.
That was a very beautiful poem. Thank you, Samantha Badri. So we're starting the year with Mudita. Can't think of anything more appropriate, really. The traditional translation of Mudita is sympathetic joy, but I prefer gladness, or perhaps even more still, I like a joyful resonance. After yesterday's very beautiful and heartfelt sharing from Samantha Badri, it feels fitting to carry on with Mudita today, as gratitude is very much an expression of the Mudita heart. So for those of you who are familiar with the Brahma Viharas, you'll know that the root Brahma Vihara is metta, loving kindness, or universal friendliness, as it's sometimes called. Metta is the expression of unconditional love in the universe that is our heart's true nature underneath all the clouds of conditioning, the kleshas, the poisons. When metta meets suffering or joy, it very naturally responds with karuna and mudita, compassion and gladness. If our hearts are open, we don't have to do anything to cultivate these two. They will arise spontaneously in response to what is before us. You will all have experienced this at times in your life. It's those wonderful moments when you yourself are not there, but instead you find yourself in the flow of compassion or gladness. It's good to remember that and remember those times, to value those times that that's happened. As I said the other day, for a long time I was focused on karuna, literally to the extent that mudita didn't exist for me as a Brahma Vihara. It was as though I was blinkered and only really saw the suffering. Yes, events that had happened to me as a child had led me to this identification with myself as a suffering being, and therefore giving me what felt like a direct line to the suffering of others. I remember at the time feeling that compassion was the greatest gift, to be able to truly meet somebody in their suffering, truly wanting to help relieve that suffering in whatever way I could. It felt primary. This was it, the basis of the spiritual life. And this isn't wrong in itself, but there is something missing, something of crucial importance, which I just couldn't see for a long time. That it's only part of the picture. It's not the whole story. So it took me a long time to realize I had to do something about it. The image of the Brahma Viharas as the bird was key to this. Literally, my bird couldn't fly. One wing was motionless. I was on a month-long solitary retreat, something I did every year, when I had this light bulb moment. I was doing the Brahma Vihara practices and really struggling with mudita. While I could completely get it with karuna, able to feel I was deeply immersed in and affected by the suffering world, this other world of gladness in another's joy seemed alien to me. And suddenly I saw the bird. I really saw the bird struggling to try and get off the ground, struggling to fly with only one wing functioning. And of course, it couldn't fly. It was such a powerful image and I knew the time had come that I had to do something. So it was a sobering moment, but actually a crucial one in my own unfoldment. I made the decision there and then to really focus on Mudita, vowing to do it every day for a year. And this was quite an undertaking, especially as I found it so hard. But I knew that I had to break through something. Thinking back to that time, I remember on the solitary really struggling with the practice on the cushion, but starting to think of ways that I could connect more. I brought friends to mind, thinking about their qualities, about good things that were happening in their lives, and how this was partly through their own momentum of practice. And I could feel my heart opening to them as I did this, which was really, really helpful at the time. I did a lot of reflection on that solitary, about myself and my life and why I was so identified with suffering. I thought a lot about gratitude and appreciation. It wasn't that I didn't feel these things at all, or even, to some extent, joy and happiness in another's joy or good fortune. It was that I didn't value them like I valued what I was calling compassion. And I was beginning to see that this was a mistake. When I got back from the solitary, I felt determined to see it through. And although it turned out to be one of the biggest challenges yet in my spiritual life, it was also perhaps the most transformative. To add to my daily practice of mudita on the cushion, I did things like start a gratitude diary, which back then was not as common as it is perhaps today. I remember to start with sitting there with the blank page in front of me, struggling to think of what to say. But really quite quickly, the words were flowing off my pen, and I found it, more and more and more. There were lots of things I was grateful for. And some of it was my own direct experience, like being grateful for my body, that it was not in pain, that I could see and hear, things that I'd just taken for granted. I remembered Bhante saying that you couldn't be grateful unless you realized the value of something. And here I was at last recognizing the value of being here now, with a body that worked, being able to see and hear and function in the world. I really made a point of rejoicing in friends and family, expressing my gratitude, telling them I was happy for them when something happened that made them really happy, or when they were able to overcome something in themselves. And after a while, it was interesting. I started to notice my world brightening up. I was valuing positive things much more, appreciating things like the beauty of the natural world in a different way, in that I not only saw its beauty, but valued it and the effect that it had, because I'd always loved nature, music, literature, the arts generally. It's just that now I seem to see it from so many angles, loving its manifold effect and seeing the conditions that have brought it into being. Bhante refers to the bright dancing colours of mudita, and I was beginning to experience this for myself, coming out from the shadow of Karuna, my immersion in the suffering world, which I often found quite overwhelming. I was beginning to recognize how much mudita is needed to bring about some balance and perspective. My heart was opening little by little, despite myself. it seems that mudita has this effect. You can't genuinely experience it without this happening. That was when I started calling it a joyful resonance and experienced it in relation to so much, whether it was in connection with another person, with people, an event, the natural world, with music, dancing, and of course, especially in relation to the Dharma. I also came to see, but of course I did experience it quite frequently prior to this time, as in fact we all do. It's in those moments when your heart opens in small ways. If you just think about it, how many times do you experience a moment of joy, however brief, by something you see? You know, it might be a child playing or a cute puppy wagging its tail. Something in the natural world that opens your heart and moves it to wonder. These are all moments of mudita. You resonate with what you see and experience a moment, however small, of the heart opening and responding with happiness, with joy. It's so connecting. This is one of its profound effects. It connects you with yourself, with others, with nature, with the natural world. It's so enlivening, so expansive. All the Brahma Viharas are connecting and expansive, but it's perhaps more obvious with mudita. Remembering these qualities, our heart's natural state, makes me think of joy as a radical act. We tend to think of it as being passive and reactive. It goes so much against the grain of societal norms. A radical act uproots our way of thinking, how we perceive ourselves in the world, so that we may start anew. This is innate joy, and it's not conditional. It is the pure uprising of love when confronted with another's joy or situations that open the heart. It's a resonance, a singing, dancing joy that sings and dances with what's before it. Just as these Brahma Vihara qualities are innate within us, so too they are in everyone else. And realizing this is a cause for great joy. The Dalai Lama says they are our spiritual birthright. Mudita offers many gifts, and one I was particularly struck by was how it underlines all the many ways we limit ourselves. So much of our unhappiness and suffering comes from our negativity towards ourselves and others. Just think about it. When you feel envious, jealous, and resentful, these are the far enemies of mudita. How does it make you feel? Just think about it right now, hearing those words. My own response is constriction, that it has a strangling effect. So many of the stories that we tell ourselves repeatedly fall into the category of envy and comparison. President Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Comparison is the thief of joy, which is so true. Just turn within, watch and listen to the inner voice. And if you find this attitude, see how dispiriting and limiting it is to continue comparing, judging, and envying those around you. And turn to mudita, because it really can free you from all that. It's progressive, as all positive mental states are. And as I said, you can't experience mudita without opening your heart. Early on in my association with mudita, when I found it really hard to practice it, I remember the grudging way I approached it, almost having to squeeze it out. But bit by bit, I started to notice how much better I felt when I was prepared to make the effort to let go of my particular story, whatever it was, and noticing its heart-opening effect when I did so. It's amazing to think back now how convinced I was that in particular there would be nothing to rejoice in or feel glad about in myself. It's truly wonderful to experience its expansive nature and how it brings appreciation of so much else in its wake. If you're of the half-empty bucket temperament, you really can gradually turn this around through your practice of mudita. Its nature is appreciation. The mudita heart actively notices and sees the beauty in everything. In the most unexpected places, even in the unbeautiful, the wabi-sabi. In the beauty of the natural world, the beauty of the Dharma, the beauty of humanity, it looks for and appreciates the skillful, the good in us all. It's also an antidote to boredom, because it knows that if you look beneath the surface of wanting to be distracted in some way, there is always something that you can be glad about, something you can appreciate and rejoice in. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Anne of Green Gables and the Glad Game. This lovely story about where she's going around to all these old folk who are just complaining about everything and getting them to see that there's always something that you can be glad about. And it is true. It's really true. Mudita has two near enemies, which can fool you into thinking that it's the real thing, but actually it's disconnected and really is all about you rather than the other person. For mudita, one aspect is when the joy, the gladness gets overexcited, agitated even, and falls into intoxication. Another aspect is vicarious enjoyment, those times when you are imaginatively having the experience through the feelings or actions of another person. It's second-hand, nothing really to do with you, just by association, in the way that parents can do with their children who are excelling at something that they wished they had been good at themselves. It's the celebrity culture, name dropping. This very much happens in spiritual circles too. It happens within Triratna. But Karana is the antidote to these near enemies. Mudita is the antidote to these near enemies, rather. Just think about it. Another way the near enemy can be experienced is through a false positivity, when we're putting on a brave face, wanting to be bright and cheerful, regardless of how we're actually feeling. Whatever we're feeling, no matter how hard and painful it is, we can have a positive response to it. And it needs to be connected. It needs to be connected with how we're actually feeling in that moment. Mudita is an open-hearted attitude to what is in our lives. Coupled with this is looking at the difference between happiness and pleasure. In today's world, everything is about instant gratification, instant pleasure. More and more things are geared in this way, and it's dangerous. Not because there's anything wrong in the pleasure itself, but because we develop an expectation that this person or those things will give us pleasure. They become objects of attachment. And if they don't act in the way we want, or get broken or lost, we suffer badly. All this tends us towards looking for external sources to bring happiness, rather than looking deeply within and through our practice of the Dharma. The source of our or another's happiness needs to have a skillful cause as well. It wouldn't do to be rejoicing in acts of happiness brought about by unskillful means. The fact that we've found the Dharma, that we're practicing and associating with others who are doing the same, is a source of great rejoicing and happiness. When we're able to see skillful and positive qualities in others and respond with heart-opening mudita, we can see so clearly how different it is to the closing down, constricting effect of envy and comparison. And the more we recognize the effects of mudita in our experience, the more it will grow. For it to be true mudita, it needs to be expressed. It's not fully mudita until then. So often the experience of something positive is there, the thought, the heart-opening connection with someone through recognition of their qualities or their joy, often in small ways, appreciating little things but not expressing them. This is like wrapping a present but not giving it. And it might be for all sorts of reasons. Thinking it's not appropriate to say anything, not feeling confident enough, or fear in general, to name a few. Even if it's something quite mundane, like telling someone how much the particular colour they have on suits them, if it struck you that way, or how much you enjoyed something they did, or how well they are looking. You'll know yourself how effective it is to both express it and to be on the receiving end of it. It opens your heart and connects you. Mudita has opened so many doors for me. I couldn't begin to do justice to all that's happened. But something very precious did, and that was that it has truly awoken the gift of appreciation and rejoicing. Gratitude too, and life is so much richer because of this. It feels like I was living in black and white before, and over time, through this practice, it's changed to Technicolor. Yes, as dramatic as that. Even more important to me has been the way it has undermined the self. Through it, there's been a real letting go of the attachment or identification I had of myself as a suffering person. And this was really holding me back, keeping me fixed as a particular type of person, boxing me in. I have a much more open view now, no longer stuck. This feels very freeing and crucially enables me to see others more openly too, not to fix them as being like this or like that, to rejoice in them, in their qualities and good fortune more as they are in that moment. So take time to reflect on your own victories, ways you've changed through practicing the Dharma, certain behaviors that govern you less now, looking at what is truly wholesome in your life. Doing this increases your ability to recognize your progress while also loosening your views about who you really are compared to who you think you should be. It lessens the tendency to self-denigration and doubt. Crucially, it builds faith and confidence, which gives you the courage to live your life without the need to judge and compare. Opening to life through appreciation, gratitude, and rejoicing brings a quality to life, even though difficult and painful at times, is a true gift. And importantly, it gives you the resources to be able to meet the suffering elements in life in a way that is more truly balanced and compassionate. So perhaps you can see now the way that Karuna and Mudita are natural expressions of metta in the world. We all experience the worldly winds, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, fame and infamy, praise and blame. You'll recognize them clearly enough in your own life. Of course, we welcome the positives, in fact, dedicate so much of our lives to searching after, wanting the pleasure, the praise, the gain, the fame. On the other hand, we reject, push away, do anything we can to avoid the negatives, the pain, the blame, the loss, and the infamy. We oscillate from one to the other, backwards and forwards, now this, now that. Through meeting these oscillations with an open heart, with metta, Karuna and Mudita naturally arise, and with them a gradual deepening of our understanding of the way things are, along with the recognition that life happens and we can no more control it than we can control the changing seasons or the tides. And through this insight, equanimity arises. Equanimity, upekkha, is metta come to fruition. And there's a lovely sense of this when you experience equanimity for yourself. There's a letting go of our futile attempt to be in control, a sense of being part of the flow of life, of coming into alignment with reality. Upekkha has what I like to call a wisdom eye. It sees and understands conditionality, that everything has its arising and passing away. Acknowledging that brings a deep peace and helps free us from living our lives through craving and aversion. We begin to see that our pleasure and pain are one. As Thich Nhat Hanh says in his very beautiful poem, this is just a part of it. My joy is like the spring, so warm it makes the flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and my laughter at once. So I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. So I hope that hearing more about Karuna and Mudita, that you can see why it's so important that there's a balance between them. Without that balance, the bird cannot fly. Our lives will continue to be drawn to whichever side of the spectrum you're on, leaving the other as unknown territory. This means that you miss the beautiful unfolding the gradual understanding that happens when you see the truth of things through the constant flow of the worldly winds, which opens you to the experience of equanimity. Meeting life with equanimity means we can surrender so much of what holds us back in comparison to others, the way we live, expecting life to be on our terms, wanting this, not wanting that, and instead being able to meet whatever comes our way with open-hearted understanding and connection and alignment with the way things truly are. So I very much hope I've conveyed something of the bright and dancing colours of Mudita. We'll have a tea break now and come back at 17 minutes past, so it's not going to be straightforward. 25. Let's come back at 27 minutes to 12. We're going to do a period of the Mudita Bhavana practice. It feels a very beautiful practice to be doing on this first day of 2021. So, yeah, some of you will know it, will have done it before, perhaps many times even, but some of you may not know it. So I'll say a little bit about it. Like the Karana Bhavana, it has an extra stage. And the reason there is that extra stage in both the practices is, just because we've, in the first stage, hopefully, you've contacted that open heart, that way of relating to your experience that is metta. And then with the Karana Bhavana, coming into contact with the suffering person allows an immediate experience very often of that change, of what happens at that point. And so in the Mudita Bhavana, in your second stage, you choose somebody who is a very positive person for you, somebody whose qualities, whose skillfulness, whose whole being kind of exudes those positive qualities. It's a very immediate thing for you. As soon as you think of them, as soon as you bring them to mind, you recognize their qualities. You recognize their skillfulness in the way they're living their life, putting life into practice. And hopefully, if as I said earlier, if you have that open-hearted metaphor response, then there's that resonance, that lovely resonance that happens. And joy meeting joy, happiness meeting happiness. And what a lovely heart-opening experience it can be. And this, of course, can happen on, very subtle levels. It might just be, quite a subtle experience, but whatever it is, just recognizing the shift that takes place when your metta meets this person for whom you have such a positive response. So we have the second stage. In that practice, then, it's just a lovely sense of appreciation, of recognition, of resonance with, their happiness, their positive qualities, their skillfulness, the beauty of them as a human being, and the effect that they have, just recognizing all these qualities, and the heart just responding, opening, connection. And then you move to the stages, the usual stages of the metta bhavana. So it's your good friend, and with your good friend, meeting them very much in the usual way, just hopefully a very warm, open-hearted connection with your friend. And once that connection's there, just reflecting on their life, reflecting on them, reflecting on the qualities that you really see and love and respect in them, appreciating them, their skillfulness, their happiness, their joy, just really seeing them through the lens of mudita and feeling that resonance. And then the neutral person, which of course is always a more difficult stage, but that recognition of everything that we do share, the shared humanity, and with everybody that we meet, although we don't know the details of their life, that they suffer from the worldly winds just as you do, that they will have their happiness and their joy just as they'll have their suffering and pain, and just really trying to connect. Yes, we used to talk a lot about, and Bhante particularly used to really talk a lot about the importance of the neutral stage in the practice. And when you think about it, nearly everybody that we meet in the world, we meet as a neutral person, and some people have an immediate impact or effect on us, but by and large, we live in a neutral world, and how are we to engage in it more fully? How are we to connect more deeply, other than through being able to kind of break through the neutral barrier, as it were, and just see people, just see humanity, just connect in that way, just being able to open your heart. I find it's a wonderful practice, just to find myself wherever I am and look around me, and how people go from being just, passers-by or standing in a queue or whatever it is that's happening, and all of a sudden it's as though they become a person in some way, just because I'm taking them in differently. I'm actually giving them my attention in that moment, and it connects. And of course, I don't know who they are at all, but it does make a difference. So yeah, just reflecting a little on that, perhaps in your own life, but in particular, paying attention to that stage in the practice, because it really does help. And then the difficult person, and with mudita, it can be quite a difficult stage. Really being able to recognize their positive qualities, really being able to recognize their skillfulness, their happiness, their joy. So yes, it gives you the opportunity, to really rise to that challenge, and being able to see them more as a whole person, just letting go a bit of the difficulties that you have, just being able to see past those and see the person more fully. And it can really, really help change your perspective. It can really bring about something quite significant in terms of your relationship with that person. So again, just really rising to the challenge. And then bringing everyone together. Again, Bhante always used to emphasize how important this stage was, that, there was that equal sense of between you all, that it would be impossible to choose one or the other, just responding equally to everyone, yourself, of course, included. I think we can tend to skip over that stage quite easily and not see the breakthrough between the exchange of self and other that can happen at that stage. And then going out into the world, and it's very, very beautiful going out into the Mudita world, just really, really reflecting on all that is positive in the world, on the joy and happiness that is there in the world. I mean, even, in the year that we've had, it's been very obviously there. So connecting with that. I heard so many stories of people, as I said earlier on in the retreat, who went really way beyond themselves. They just saw a need during the lockdown, the first lockdown I'm thinking of particularly, and responded, just really went beyond themselves to help. And it's just beautiful. And there are countless people in the world really wishing to be of service to the world, really wishing to engage, to help. So going out into the world, very much looking for that. It feels like a beautiful place to be on the first day of January 2021. So I've said all that in preparation because I will remind us of where we are, but I want to say as little as possible in the practice. So other than just a few little reminders, I can leave you to yourselves, because there's quite a few stages, and some of them then are quite short, and if I'm speaking, you've got no chance of having your own experience, as it were. So, okay. So just preparing yourself, getting settled in your meditation posture. The Mudita Bhavana. We'll have a longer first stage, giving you the opportunity to get yourself well set up, to create the conditions that will help the practice unfold. Just be like the Bhavana gardener, really seeing what the conditions are that are needed for how you are right now, so your heart can open and you can really engage with the practice. Listening deeply to yourself. This stage is all about your connection with yourself. That sense of opening your heart to yourself. So moving into the second stage with your boon friend. Someone whose positive qualities, whose skillfulness, their joy, their happiness just lights up your heart, opens your heart. Connecting with them and those qualities. Noticing what happens as you do so. Appreciating them, feeling the resonance heart to heart. remembering to pause, take stock if you need to, before going on to your good friend. Meeting, connecting, and then focusing on her positive qualities, her skillfulness, her joy, happiness. taking your time. Seeing what's needed before moving to the neutral person. Just really engaging with this person. You can sense so much about a person through their being, the way they hold themselves, their expressions. Be curious about them. Again, taking the time you need before moving on to the difficult person. Just being with them, looking for a sense of connection. And seeing beyond your difficulties, the particular way you interact. Seeing their positive qualities, their skillfulness, their happiness. See if you can find a resonance. imaginatively bringing everyone together. Yourself, your boon friend, your dear friend, the neutral person and the difficult person. Looking to break through the barriers that separate you one from another. That sense you couldn't choose between you. Equal Mudita. That isn't how it feels. You can wish that it might be like that. May it be so. And moving out when you're ready, rejoicing, appreciating, valuing, resonating with the Mudita world. then for the last couple of minutes of the practice, just letting go of any effort. Just sitting with the effects of the practice. I very much hope you've had a taste of Mudita in your practice. And yeah, just remind you again about the offering your hand of Avalokiteshvara, what you want to offer the world in 2021. And you can share that when we meet in our groups this afternoon. So go well in the meantime, and I'll see you then.